In this lecture, we're going to learn about a new technique to strengthen your interpreting accuracy. The strategy we'll focus on today is called the counting points technique. This technique is especially useful for interpreters because it helps you check your output, stay accurate, and even improve your note-taking. Instead of trying to remember every single word, you'll learn how to break a message down into manageable chunks, count them, and then check your interpretation to be sure you didn't leave anything out. We'll connect this back to what we've already learned about chunking, and we'll also explore how to apply it in real interpreting situations, both for memory and for note-taking. By the end of this lesson, you'll see how the counting points technique can help you become more confident, efficient, and precise in your interpreting practice. Let's start with a quick warm-up. This is going to be a shadowing exercise. What this means is that you're going to be listening to a speaker speak in English, and you're going to be repeating what she says immediately as she is speaking. You will not be interpreting for this exercise. The setting for this scenario is a diabetes education class, focusing on the different types of insulin patients might be prescribed. The speaker is not going to pause. She will deliver her presentation to the audience almost like she is giving a speech. So you must repeat what you hear as soon as you hear it, while paying attention to what she continues to say. Shadowing exercises are especially helpful for developing and strengthening simultaneous interpreting skills, but they also help you strengthen skills required for consecutive interpreting, including multitasking, for example, when you have to listen and you are taking notes, and listening and focusing when there are distractions. This exercise will also help you with speed and checking your output as you try to keep up with the speaker, while ensuring you do not leave anything the speaker has set out. So let's have a little fun with this one. Before you try the exercise, you can pause the video to build yourself a KTL, or key terms list, since you know the topic. Okay, take a deep breath. The presentation will begin now. Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Wyatt. I am a nurse practitioner here at University Hospital. Now, Jonathan has already shared with you lots of great information, helpful tips, and even recipe hacks you can incorporate to help you make good dietary choices and manage your blood glucose levels. But for some people, lifestyle and dietary changes may not be enough to help them reach their targeted blood glucose levels. And so in addition to incorporating important lifestyle changes like dietary adjustments and incorporating exercise, their doctor may also recommend the use of insulin. That's what my part of this presentation is about. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the different types of insulin you may need to help you manage your diabetes. Now, it's important to understand that everyone's diabetes is different, and your healthcare team will work with you to determine which type of insulin is best for you. I will be talking with you about 4 different types of insulin, but your doctor and healthcare team will decide whether you will incorporate the use of insulin into your diabetes management plan, and if so, which type or combination of types will work best for you specifically. All right, let's start with the basics. Insulin is classified by how fast and how long it works in your body. Today we're going to talk about 4 main types of insulin. They are fast-acting, short-acting, intermediate-acting, and long-acting. Each one works differently in your body and has a different duration of action. Fast-acting insulin, also known as rapid-acting insulin, is usually taken just before or after a meal. It starts working within 10 to 15 minutes and reaches its peak in about an hour. This type of insulin is used to control blood sugar spikes that occur after eating. Intermediate-acting insulin, also known as NPH insulin, takes longer to start working than fast-acting insulin. It usually begins working within 1 to 3 hours from the time you take it. and it reaches its peak in about 8 to 12 hours. This type of insulin is often used to control blood sugar levels between meals and overnight. Long-acting insulin is also known as basal insulin, and this type of insulin works slowly and steadily to keep your blood sugar levels stable throughout the day and night. It starts working within a few hours of injection and can last up to 24 hours. Now, intermediate and long-acting insulins contain added substances that make them work over a long time. Those added substances can sometimes make them look cloudy, so many people refer to them as cloudy insulin to distinguish them from fast-acting insulin, which is most commonly clear. So someone might say something like, I use 10 units of cloudy and 30 units of clear insulin. Now, as I said, it's important to remember that everyone's diabetes is different, and your healthcare team will work with you to determine which type of insulin is best for you. Okay, I hope you had fun trying the shadowing exercise. After you have finished watching this lecture, feel free to go back and try it again. You can also use the exercise to try simultaneous interpreting when you feel you are ready. But for now, we're going to continue using this diabetes education presentation to introduce a new technique to strengthen your accuracy. We will refer to it as the counting points technique. You can use this technique as a tool to help with checking your output, which in turn is going to help you improve accuracy, and you can apply it as a strategy for note-taking. Counting points involves chunking, which we learned means grouping ideas contained in a message and using the chunks to recall the message instead of trying to remember each individual word in the message. Because we know that taking a message that might be long or heavy in content is easier to recall if we break it down into small parts or small chunks. Now, your brain is going to be doing a lot of things when you apply this technique, but we are going to break it down into 3 easy to understand steps. The 3 C's: chunk, count, and check. We are going to chunk messages specifically by topic comment. So each chunk will include a topic and a comment about that topic. As we chunk, we are going to count or keep track of how many chunks we have to interpret in order to deliver a complete and accurate interpretation. Then we are going to check our output to verify we interpreted as many messages as we received from the speaker. Okay, I admit this might sound a bit more complicated than it is, so let's practice together with the presentation from earlier. Let's work with the speaker's introduction. We're going to first chunk by topic comment, and you can see that here I have chunked the message and ended up with 5 chunks, including a greeting. Thank you, Jonathan. An introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Cindy Wyatt. I'm a nurse practitioner here at University Hospital. A recap. Jonathan has already shared with you lots of great information. A review, helpful tips, and even recipe hacks, and that purpose. You can incorporate to help you make good dietary choices and manage your blood glucose levels. I counted 5 chunks in the speaker's message. To use this technique to check my output, when I deliver my interpretation, I can check to be sure I interpret 5 chunks. So it's the same thing as saying, this message contained 5 parts, and I want to make sure that I interpret those 5 parts that the message is made out of, to be sure that I deliver the original message completely. And we'll get some more practice in this presentation. For now, let's take a look at how I can use the technique for note-taking. Note-taking is very helpful for interpreters if done right, but not all note-taking techniques are helpful for interpreters. Interpreters use a specific specialized technique for note-taking. Just like we learned there are different types of listening, there are different types of note-taking. For example, notes I take during a lecture or in class. What is the purpose of those notes? Well, the purpose of those notes is to help me learn. I can also use them to help me study for an exam. When I take notes in class, I can choose to leave something out if I don't think it's important. Let's say the professor might make a joke, but I don't need to remember that joke. The professor might remind the class to turn off their cell phones during class. I don't need to put that in my notes. The professor might review something from the previous week, but since I took notes last week, I may not need to write any of that down. When I'm taking notes in class, as I am listening to the professor, I can decide what I want to remember and what I don't think is important. And that's how I might decide what I will add to my notes and what I will leave out. But when we interpret, we do not leave anything out. We don't decide what messages are important and which ones are not. We interpret everything. So our notes have to be the kind of notes that help us deliver a complete and accurate interpretation. Our note-taking technique cannot distract us or cause us to miss any part of a message. For example, let's say that Cindy Wyatt, the nurse practitioner from our shadowing exercise, is actually delivering this information to a patient during a one-on-one consult. In that situation, she most likely would pause to allow the interpreter to interpret. So let's look at one of her utterances. Jonathan has already shared with you lots of great information, helpful tips, and even recipe hacks you can incorporate to help you make good dietary choices and manage your blood glucose levels. Now, this is a pretty long utterance, and if I was the interpreter, I would want to write a note to help me be accurate. But if I'm too busy writing down what Jonathan has shared, some great information, helpful tips, and even recipe hacks, to listen to and remember why he shared that information, then I need to develop a better note-taking strategy. Because my goal as an interpreter is to be accurate, and I cannot leave the second part out because I'm concentrating on the first part. Interpreting also demands speed. Yes, simultaneous interpreting is faster than consecutive interpreting. But consecutive interpreting also needs to happen quickly. When interpreting in the consecutive mode, the interpreter must start delivering the interpretation immediately after the speaker has stopped talking. This means that we don't have a lot of time to take notes. So our note-taking technique has to be one that allows us to write meaningful, useful notes quickly and in a way that doesn't interfere with the flow of communication. Now we'll get back to our main topic, counting points. In this second half of the presentation, we're going to practice counting points, use counting points to start learning how interpreters take notes, and finally, we are going to combine chunking, counting points, note-taking, and what we learned about context in a previous lesson to accurately and completely recall messages. In the end, I hope you can see the different ways you can support your memorization skills to improve your accuracy. Okay, let's start with chunking. Because we have to be quick, we know that we will not have time to write every single word a speaker says. This is why chunking can be extremely helpful. So, using our 3 C's, chunk, count, check, we are going to chunk the message specifically by topic comment, so that our chunks include a topic and a comment about that topic. And as we chunk, we are going to count or keep track of how many chunks we broke down the message into, which will be the same amount of chunks we have to interpret in order to deliver a complete and accurate interpretation. Then we are going to check our output to verify we interpreted as many messages as we received from the speaker. And this is what my notes might look like. The first note is for Cindy's introduction. Now for this utterance, I chunked Cindy's message into 5 points. Each note is going to help me deliver those 5 parts of Cindy's message. At this point on your screen, you should see that my notes don't contain whole words. In another lesson, we are going to learn about how to use symbols, abbreviations, links, and space in our notes instead of writing down whole words that would take too long to be effective for interpreting. For now, let's concentrate on how I chunked the message instead of what I used to write down my chunks. The first chunk then is the greeting, and that message includes a thank you to Jonathan and a hello to everyone else. The second chunk is an introduction. My name is Cindy Wyatt. I am a nurse practitioner here at University Hospital. Now in this note, you will notice that I have a note for Cindy's name and title, but not for University Hospital. Why? Well, because here is another important thing you should know about notes. Notes are meant to be clues for your memory. They are not meant to replace your memory. This note here is helping me remember this person's name and title. And that itself is a clue to the rest of the message. Oh yeah, she was introducing herself and she also said where she works. And that's going to help me remember she said University Hospital. Okay, then came the third chunk, and in that chunk, she recapped what Jonathan said. Jonathan has already shared with you lots of great information. So my clue for a fourth chunk is notes on what Jonathan shared, tips and recipe hacks. And my final clue for a fifth chunk is that the information Jonathan shared can be used to help make good dietary choices and manage blood glucose levels. Okay, it's your turn to practice counting points, and we'll do it together. Listen to Cindy's next part, and as you listen, I want you to just chunk the message and count the chunks. That's it. If you take notes, don't worry about what your notes look like, how you wrote them down. You are just going to chunk and count how many chunks you end up with. Here we go. But first, for some people, lifestyle and dietary changes may not be enough to help them reach their targeted blood glucose levels. And so in addition to incorporating important lifestyle changes like dietary adjustments and incorporating exercise, their doctor may also recommend the use of insulin. Let's hear it one more time. But for some people, lifestyle and dietary changes may not be enough to help them reach their targeted blood glucose levels. And so, in addition to incorporating important lifestyle changes like dietary adjustments and incorporating exercise, their doctor may also recommend the use of insulin. Okay. How many chunks did you end up with? I ended up with 4. And here they are. Let's do the next part as well. This time, however, I want you to take notes in this way. I want you to write down 1 or 2 words for each chunk. Try not to write more than 2 words for each chunk. So if I was doing this for the previous part, it would look like this. For my first chunk, I would only write the word but. For my second chunk, not enough. Third, adding to. And my fourth chunk, insulin. So I would still chunk this in 4 parts, but I'm only writing down 1 or 2 words for each of those chunks. Okay, here we go. Listen to the next part and write only keywords that can serve as clues to help you recall the entire message. Write them down vertically, as you see here on the screen. That's up and down instead of across. In each line, you should only have 1 or 2 words. Here's Cindy's message. That's what my part of this presentation is about. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the different types of insulin you may need to help you manage your diabetes. Let's hear the message one more time. That's what my part of this presentation is about. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the different types of insulin you may need to help you manage your diabetes. All right, so I wrote down 3 words, which means that I chunked Cindy's message into 3 chunks. And my 3 words were presentation, insulins. I want you to notice that is plural, insulins, and manage. And here are the chunks. For presentation, that's my clue for the following message. That's what my part of this presentation is about. I wrote down insulins for this part of the message. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the different types of insulin you may need to help you. And then I wrote down manage for the last part, which is manage your diabetes. Now, Cindy's statement is 31 words long, but I can use just 3 words to recall the entire message. How am I doing this practically, effectively, and quickly? Well, I'm using chunking. I cut the message down into parts. We already know that. To be quick, I'm going to condense each part into a short note. That's my 1 or 2 words. Now here's the part that we didn't talk about yet and that we didn't write down. I am also going to use my memory because, as we said, our notes are not a replacement for our memory. And I'm going to use context, the place that I'm in, so environmental context, what I know about diabetes, so my background context, to be able to look at that note and recall each chunk from just 1 word. And that's how I can end up recalling the entire message. Throughout the program, we will take a look at different strategies and skills to help us with our accuracy, to help you decide which best works for you.